Welcome to Living Well with Cancer, brought to you by the Cancer Resource Center of the Finger Lakes and the Keuka Cancer Center right here in Ithaca, New York. Today's webinar presentation is Supporting Healing Through Movement, presented by Margaret Steffi and the Tompkins County YMCA. So welcome, everyone. All right, so Margaret, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
You're welcome. I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Absolutely. So I am coming from the Ithaca YMCA. Well, if you're seeing the background, I'm not there right now, but that is where I work. I am the health and wellness director there currently. Some of my background, I'm a distance runner. That is my main form of joy. The only time my brain really shuts off. I have a master's in public health, so I really love that overall public health sphere. I personal train with a huge focus on corrective movement and just those small, like post physical therapy motions to get back to good health. I also am one of our coaches for the Live Strong program that the Y offers, which is our cancer survivorship program. So I help with that program frequently. And within that, it's a 12-week program that uh, just helps people kind of reclaim themselves, learn about fitness, so on and so forth. And I'll touch a little bit more on that later, but those are the few tenets about me. I also have 3 dogs. I love them far too much, like children. They're sitting right here. They're thinking about joining in, so they might. Um, but that's that. So I broke this into cancer's impact on muscle, the treatments, how that kind of plays into all of just muscle and fitness and health as a whole, and then how can you kind of build back into either a level of fitness if you didn't have one before, or what can you do to kind of slowly regain that fitness if you've lost it during treatment or other parts of cancer. So cancer obviously causes inflammation within our body. It's cells that aren't acting as they should. And when the body is inflamed, it uses the muscle and fat tissue that it has to replenish other stores. It's going to take what we have and use it to other systems to kind of keep it self-sustaining. It also releases cytokines, which are a lovely chemical system in our body. And when these are released, other metabolic processes cause muscle to wither and decline. So we lose muscle as a result of both cancer and the chemicals that cancer being in our body causes. And this just results in muscle loss, possibly loss of bone density, and as a result, a decrease in fitness capacity and ability to engage in fitness activities. So those are the shorts of how cancer as itself impacts just the body. But then obviously there's 3 main ways at least that we treat cancer. I broke that into surgery, chemotherapy, and then radiation within that, as well as some people do hormone treatments following cancer treatment to hopefully keep cancer from returning. So obviously, when someone is having a surgery, there's different types of surgeries. There's points where biopsies, there's maybe partial removals to increase quality of life. I chose because those are less impactful, I guess, on the system, or at least when I was doing research and looking into this, I would say the impact was lower, at least on the body as a whole. It's not that it's not impactful for the person, but I looked at more the total or partial tissue removal part of treatment because that has a bigger impact on other areas of our body. So these typically are what we would consider our curative surgeries, or more curative because we're removing more of that cancerous tissue. They're also usually going to be more invasive, which takes longer times for someone to heal. They have to be cautious for a longer period of time, and just often are going to cause the body more trauma. And so that usually increases our time for recovery and healing. Some common ones that occur within people who have been diagnosed with cancer include mastectomies, so the removal of breast tissue, colectomies, so the removal of their colon or part of their colon, lobectomies, so removals of part of the lung tissue, nephrectomies, removal of parts of the kidney, or hysterectomies, which are removal of the uterus and the ovaries, or just one or the other, depending on the diagnosis. So depending on the surgical procedure will determine obviously impacts of how these surgeries impact the body as a whole. But overall, most surgeries can result in nerve damage, pain, numbness, tingling, or sometimes weakness due to moving the tissues or just damage to the tissues as the surgeon has to go in there and remove things. Lymph nodes also, when removed, can also result in pain, stiffness, and a decrease in range of motion because they help our system flush lymphatic fluid and immune system fluids throughout our body. So typically when those are removed, we also have a decrease in the motion of those fluids throughout the body. Probably, at least from working as a Livestrong coach, we see breast cancer survivors most frequently. I think it's one of our most common cancers that we see. I guarantee Bert could confirm that that's probably the most common one out there, or at least that's most commonly diagnosed.
It's one of the top four. Yeah, it's very common.
So we frequently see individuals, at least at the Y, who have had mastectomies or partial mastectomies or treatments to go along with that. And within a mastectomy, obviously there's the body dysmorphia and issues that go along with having that tissue removed. But also when someone goes into and has a mastectomy, the tissue covering the muscle and even sometimes the muscle itself that is behind the breast tissue can be removed. So you're not only going to be removing breast tissue, but you're going to either be removing the muscle covering or the muscle itself or part of it. And that's going to obviously decrease the ability of our, chest muscles to work as they should. And also when someone has surgery such as this, it can cause the muscles to shorten due to the trauma or make them stiffer due to scar tissue within there. So scar tissue with any surgery is usually a huge problem. Just because obviously when we cut into the body as it heals, it creates scars and adhesions and stronger pieces of tissue to hold those pieces that were damaged back together. But they often are less mobile, they have less range of motion, they can have pain and damage as well. So that's my example within a mastectomy. There's going to be similar ones for other types of tissue removal such as that. Lobectomies and nephrectomies also can impact the body because obviously we're removing like a kidney or part of a lung or maybe a total lung. So your capacity for your body to either use oxygen or process the blood has declined for a period of time. And as a result, according to the research I found, it can actually take up to a year or more for someone to return to feeling quote unquote normal again or where they were prior to surgery as your body adjusts to all of that. And I actually, knowing someone who they donated their kidney to a family member, they said it took 2 to 3 years for them to kind of feel normal again after losing a kidney. So while they didn't have cancer, they did donate a kidney to someone else. And that period of time where their body got used to only having one was much longer than they expected. So anything like that, your body is kind of getting thrown into a system where it's like, I'm functioning at normal. Oh, now my normal is below what it was. And it has to kind of figure out what the new normal is, and it can adapt. It just takes time. There are some actually athletes out there with only one lung who are top athletes within their field. So it's not that it's not possible. It just can take adjustment and getting used to that new situation. And then the other big one that I thought was important to focus on are hysterectomies. They obviously typically remove the uterus and or the ovaries. And as a result of removing those tissues, you often put someone into early menopause, and that often shifts their hormone profiles very quickly, so their body doesn't have the time to adjust as it normally does. And going into menopause often results in things like muscle loss, decrease in bone density, so your bones can become more brittle or more easily broken. You can increase the body fat of on your body. And often you have stiffer joints and a decrease in energy levels. So obviously surgery has huge impacts in many, many ways, but those are probably the big ones that people see when they have different tissues removed within their body. On top of that, some people often have to go through chemotherapy on top of the surgery, unfortunately, and chemotherapy obviously is usually a concoction of multiple drugs that impacts rapidly growing tissue cells within the body. There's other ones that do different things as well, but it typically results in muscle weakness and loss, which can be from increased fatigue and results in decreased physical activity. It can also due to just not feeling as well. You're going to sit around more. Those muscles are going to weaken. They're going to atrophy. And the ability for muscles to kind of repair can become impaired also because some of the chemotherapy drugs themselves actually have damage to muscles and nerves, and that also makes physical activity more difficult. Obviously, with anything like chemotherapy where you're introducing substances that are often very hard on the body, you're also going to have fatigue. Sometimes people have peripheral neuropathy, so like weakness and numbness and tingling in their feet or hands or other extremities. Some of the chemo drugs also can indirectly or directly impact the heart and its function, so they can reduce your ability to engage in cardiovascular or aerobic activities like walking, running, biking, swimming, hiking, other things people in the Ithaca area love doing. And all of this, as well as just how chemo interacts with the body, can have huge psychological effects. I don't think I should skim over those at all because the effects can be very huge. The drugs themselves can cause negative psychological effects. They can lead to anxiety and depression, or any of the other impacts that it has on the body can lead to those symptoms as well. And then that makes engaging in physical activity even more difficult because they don't want to engage if they don't feel well, if they don't feel confident, and if they don't feel like themselves. And then one other one we have would be radiation. So typically it's targeting, or it's more localized than chemotherapy. It's not going throughout the body. It's targeted at the tissue we're trying to get rid of the cancer in. But it's going to still cause muscle weakness and loss of muscle mass within that region of the body. There's going to be fatigue. You're going to be tired because any procedure on the body is going to impact it and require time for it to recover. If radiation is directed at the bone, it's going to decrease the bone density, like some of these other treatments. So it can make someone more prone to bones breaking. It can also damage nerves and cause neuropathy, so tingling, numbness, weakness in different nerve areas. And as some who have experienced radiation, it's going to cause things like fibrosis, so creation of scar tissue in the connective tissue areas that it's affecting. It's going to change the skin or soft tissue. It might make it tender. It might make friction, or when it comes in contact with other surfaces, there might be friction. It could be more prone to infection. So usually, like, it's not recommended people on radiation go into pools for that time period, things like that. And also if it's aimed at cardiovascular or lung tissues, it's also going to impact the lungs and other respiratory effects. So it could impact breathing as well. And like any other treatment, it is going to psychologically impact someone. Any big change to a body is going to cause psychological impacts. And then finally, one that usually happens post-surgery, post-chemotherapy, post-radiation would be hormone therapies. Most commonly, they're used post-breast cancer. There probably are other cancers. Bert could probably share on that hormone therapy is common. I think typically of breast cancer, because that's probably what I hear from the individuals who've done Livestrong the most, is the cumulative sigh from the individuals who have had breast cancer and have completed treatment, and their aromatase inhibitors and their other medications that go within that field, and just the symptoms and the feeling yucky and you name it, and they're all like, oh, and then they all start relating and ragging on the drugs together. And that camaraderie is beautiful, but the side effects definitely are not.
Yeah, the breast cancer treatments can really have an impact on the body. That's so taxing, everything they have to go through, especially when they're hormone positive. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Even so, I will say one of our Livestrong participants was a male with breast cancer. And he even then was like, oh, I get to go through menopause too, friends. And it was like his own joke. But at the same time, it isn't funny that he has to go through those impacts just as much because of the chance of it recurring. So while hormone therapy is often considered necessary for those who are hormone positive, for breast cancer or other cancers that are hormone related. At least with breast cancer, the focus is typically on decreasing estrogen within the body or impacting its ability to be used within the body to decrease the likelihood of the cancer from coming back. But it has a ton of negative side effects that no one likes. So things like joint pain, joint weakness, fatigue, you can have bone loss. It can cause high blood pressure or cholesterol to raise, weight gain, mood changes, and impacts on mental health, hot flashes, poor sleep, muscle loss, all the things that no one wants to hear about and that have already been impacted by surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. So it's just adding to it for a longer period of time, unfortunately. But even though all of those are icky and unfortunate, and I never wish, and I wish cancer could be cured today, as I guarantee everyone else on this call wishes. The benefits of physical activity are huge within how they can benefit someone as a whole person with cancer or without, but especially with cancer because they can have huge positive effects on mood, or just working on building back what someone had, or maybe what someone was not physically active prior to cancer, but can work on that, and that can be a new focus for them to kind of regain a sense of self and regain strength that was lost. So some benefits include improved physical fitness. So engaging in physical activity can help maintain or build muscle strength. Probably everyone knows that, but just the ability to engage in physical activity is going to increase your amount of muscle within your body, and that also is going to negate the impacts of many of these cancer treatments. And if someone is cleared to engage in physical activity during treatment, that can also keep the atrophy from being as severe. It can increase your cardiovascular fitness through, obviously, every time you're moving your body, you're increasing your lungs and heart's capacity like any other muscle to kind of grow, expand, and build on itself. Because the heart is a muscle, the lungs are not as much, they work within that system, but all of that requires muscles to work to make them move. And when we engage in more physical activity, that kind of strengthens those systems like any other muscle. And then engaging in physical fitness can also improve flexibility and mobility. If you're doing flexibility and mobility training, things like yoga, Tai Chi, balance training, just basic stretching, those can both impact just maybe range of motion you didn't have before, but also if you've had treatments that decrease your range of mobility, such as removal of lymph nodes, radiation, or a surgery that's causing scar tissue, those things are going to help increase that range of motion to what it was before, or maybe past it, depending on your goals, or just maybe you fall in love with a fitness modality in the process of figuring it all out. It also has an impact on bone health. So anytime that we engage in any physical activity, give me just a second.
Oh, the dogs are barking? That's quite all right. We love dogs around here.
Yeah, there's another dog outside. And they're like, hey, they're out and we're not. But anytime we engage in physical activity, especially types of physical activity such as walking or running or weightlifting that require a force on the bones and the joints and the muscle, we're going to increase our bone health. Because that force requires the bones to remodel themselves. It's going to require them to get stronger to compensate for that increased stress. Because when we put stress on something within our body, it typically fortifies itself. Think about if we lift weights, we're putting stress on it, we're adding a weight that we're requiring our body to move beyond the limb's weight itself, and it's going to build stronger so that it can compensate for that. Things like swimming and biking, while great, they don't unfortunately usually have as much of an impact on bone health because they're lower impact activities. Go for it, Bert.
You taking questions now or at the end? Or anytime or at the end?
Anytime.
So do body weight exercises benefit the bones? Or is it more?
They do.
Okay, great to know.
Yes. I was going to touch on that later. They absolutely do. There obviously is a point where if you're, say, doing body weight exercises for years on end with no making them more difficult or more challenging, they're not going to have as much of a benefit. There's still a benefit to them for sure. But depending on your goals, you're not going to say progress. Like, for
Gotcha.
example, if you want to run a half marathon and all you do is run 5Ks, you're not progressing to a point where you've built up that distance to finish the half marathon and feel good or decent at the end. So you can absolutely improve bone health and muscle mass with just body weight.
Thank you.
So,
Absolutely.
aside from running, can you please name one or two other body weight trajectories?
Absolutely. So you can be doing obviously basic strength movements with just body weight, things like squats, hinging from your hips, like a deadlift with no weight. You can just be moving muscles through their range of motion and working on contracting them with no equipment at all. Other things that I like to think about are like group exercise modalities that are common. So things like dance or dance fitness. Maybe you like to salsa dance. I know that's pretty common in Ithaca, is salsa nights. But different things like that. Any place you're moving, you're typically going to be having some impact on the body. So walking is a huge one that's great. Hiking. Yeah, so walking and hiking are a great place to always start. If you want more impact or want to challenge yourself beyond walking, then I usually say running or maybe try dancing. But it's also going to be what you like to do. Like, if you don't like to dance, why would I try to convince you to dance? It doesn't make any sense. It's got to be what you enjoy as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's mostly what I knew, but I didn't know if there was like something out there that was happening that I didn't know about. So thank you.
I like to keep it simple. I don't like to find all like the new fun, I don't know, equipment that promises so many things necessarily. I'm
Yeah,
like, what
no,
can
no,
we
no, I'm
do
not about that either. So
with
yeah.
basic equipment? Like you can go out and walk in basically any shoes or no shoes at all. We're in Ithaca. Half the people don't wear shoes, I feel like, at least in summer. You don't really need that much to walk or hike in this area. And then just beyond that, it's typically whatever you like engaging in. Physical activity is also going to help our sleep. It helps the body relax. It can get rid of excess energy. For some people, it can also help with focus. And then that helps someone to both fall asleep and stay asleep longer. So then the better sleep is also going to help with healing from cancer or the side effects of the drugs. Our body needs sleep to repair, to recover, and to kind of go through all those processes because those are really taxing on our bodies. So the sleep helps make those processes less severe. Physical activity, while most people think, oh, it makes me tired, it also actually has the impact of reducing fatigue. So if you engage in regular physical activity, so at least a couple times a week, even if it's just walking, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, it can actually decrease our overall fatigue levels and increase our energy. So basically, spending energy gives us more energy in the long run. And with someone going through, say, a cancer treatment of some sort, which causes fatigue, engaging in physical activity can help make their body feel less fatigued. So that's really important while counterintuitive, for sure. It can also boost the immune system. So cancer obviously has the ability to weaken the immune system, as well as the treatments can weaken it or cause someone to be immunocompromised. But physical activity can strengthen the immune system and decrease the chance of illness. Those activities, kind of like they strengthen our muscles, will also activate different immune pathways in our body, and that can strengthen them or decrease the chance of illness or the chance that we're going to get sick. It also just has the ability, like going back to that walk example, if we're going to take a walk outside, the sunlight's going to make us feel good. Being outside, we're not necessarily being exposed to maybe someone else's pathogens and germs and grossness, like if we were, say, inside. We're getting out of cold, flu, and yuck season. But I know that many people, especially if they don't have a strong immune system, are very hesitant to be inside and in enclosed spaces. So getting outside, engaging in, say, a walk or some bike riding or physical activity of some sort, both that sunlight, being outside, all can benefit the immune system, and if you're outside, your chances of getting sick are often decreased because you're not in someone else's, little bubble of enclosed air. And then also physical activity has the ability to improve mental health and mood. So it releases endorphins, which are feel-good chemicals within our body, kind of like you've maybe heard runner's high. Runners love a runner's high. So it's basically from running or from engaging in any physical activity, that release of endorphins within the body makes someone feel good by the end of it. And these chemicals can reduce anxiety, stress, and improve mood and decrease depression. So it has many, many impacts or effects, and everyone's going to have different things they like and don't like. So it often takes some trying out different things to find what you like, but it definitely has an overall positive impact regardless of what activity you're choosing. But then with all that information dump, where do you go from there? How do you start feeling better? I think the biggest one, just start moving. It can be you grabbing your shoes and taking a 5-minute walk with the dog, or just with yourself or with a spouse or a friend. As long as you are cleared for physical activity by your practitioner, that you don't have any concerns that you're going to, get injured or further make your cancer worse or something like that, or they don't have any concerns. Most of them, I think, at least in the Ithaca area, from what I know, always are encouraging people to engage in physical activity, engage in walking at least. And I think there's maybe some other cancer resource center or post that created groups I know that exist for walking. I've been told by a few others who've been cancer survivors in this area that they have walking groups that go around. I don't know who runs or organizes that, but things like that, just start moving. Especially if you don't need physical therapy, things like that, just start moving. If you do need physical therapy, that's always a great place to start too, because they're going to be able to give you some pointers, some recommendations, and also some exercises to get you moving. Typically, many choose to walk as their first activity, either during treatment or following it, due to its ease of access. We have so many amazing walking trails in this area. We're really, really fortunate. And it's got that beautiful balance between being an impact activity and not being such high impact that most people can do it with minimal pain, minimal impact or additional pain to the joints. And usually they don't need to, say, take a long rest afterwards to recover from it. And it's also, as I was saying, a great way to get outside, especially as it's getting nicer out at this time of year. It's another way and reason to get outside. And if you're just getting started, focus on small things. Focus on, say, walking, even if it's just 5-10 minutes every day. Stationary bikes are great if you don't have the confidence or balance to go out on a regular bike, or if the weather's really yucky outside. Rowing, if you have a rowing machine or access to one, pretty low impact. It's going to be a great cardio boost as well as a total body exercise. And then other things that are really great for individuals who have had cancer or are going through treatment are swimming. That decrease in the gravity and impact on your body can be really nice feeling, especially if someone's experiencing joint pain or other pains as a result of surgeries or treatments. And then balance training. Balance definitely gets impacted by cancer treatments. Just different changes in the body can impact it in so many ways. So it's really important to work on building our balance back up to decrease both chance of falls for further injury and just increase the ability to engage in other physical activities. Some good examples of those are things like yoga and Tai Chi. Both of those actually have a huge impact on balance because they play with that center of gravity as you move. And all of this, if it's not, walking outside, but things like yoga, Tai Chi, we have great practitioners in this area, but also a lot of it can be found on things like YouTube as well. So then it's not usually hard to find. Stretching, that's another important one that, oh, were you going to say something, Bert? Okay.
There's some there might be some noise. So I was just muting myself for a second in case it got noisy in here.
Gotcha. Stretching, also a great low barrier to access activity. You can always be finding resources online, either through YouTube. I know the cancer American Cancer Society, I believe it is, has a great like resource book that I sent you the link to, Bert, within that PowerPoint. It's at the end. So you're welcome to share those things out with people. But they have different things that focus on different types of cancer and how those impact our body. But stretching has the ability to increase their obviously range of motion, decrease the stiffness, and can often help decrease the pain and stiffness that goes along with the building of scar tissue that occurs from surgeries and radiation. So they often make people feel better. I always hear when we do stretching like that sigh of relief or the, oh, it hurts so good, things that come out of people, but it is true. It makes you feel really good. And it helps with that tightness and stiffness. So there's typically two types of stretching that you can do. There's static stretching, which involves holding a stretch for a period of time. Probably what we think of most when we stretch. At least that's what I remember going back to, going through school, we do a ton of static stretching. And then this helps the muscle release the tension. But then there's also dynamic stretching. So this is when we move the body area, such as the arm or the leg, through its range of motion to actually increase that range of motion and overall flexibility. So if you think about like swinging our leg back and forth, some people might be really flexible like a ballet dancer. They're going to be able to swing it really high from side to side with minimal problem. And then that person who just had a surgery to their hip, obviously beyond having precautions to it, due to all that muscle damage from the surgery, are going to not be able to move it as far. So doing something like a dynamic stretch where we're moving it through that range of motion as they kind of slowly and controlled swing it back and forth, it's going to increase that range of motion over time. So typically when I am engaging in physical activity, if I'm doing stretching, I'm doing a dynamic stretch at the beginning of my workout or my exercise. So moving that piece of that limb through its range of motion before I engage it in the physical activity that requires it to be in that range of motion. Things like circles for my hips I'm just trying to think of examples, but like hip circles are gonna, increase that range of motion to the hip. Doing ankle circles is gonna help with the ankle mobility. Flexing and extending the knees. Doing circles for our arms or our shoulders are gonna increase the range of motion up here in our shoulders and upper body, which often I know with breast cancer and say lymphedema and things like that are going to be decreased. So things like that are the small things that we can be doing too, that maybe don't feel like exercise, but are also helping our body. And then one that I usually recommend if you engage in, definitely talk with either your doctor or your physical therapist for some guidance if you haven't received it previously, or maybe a chiropractor if you have one of those, but foam rolling. So this is like giving yourself a massage. You could also always engage in massage if that's going to make you feel better. I know nothing about that though, so I'm going to not talk to that one. Foam rolling is a great way to get back passive range of motion typically, as well as just work on knots and pressure points and things like that, because you're using that roller, that round-shaped object, to kind of press through those knotted areas or those tight areas of the body. So it just kind of increases our range of motion overall. And often while it can be a little painful at first, it often kind of feels good, kind of like a massage. You're going to be kneading out those parts that are really tight and stiff. And sometimes that can be really helpful for someone who's gone through cancer treatment or has, a decreased range of motion, because that can help increase the range of motion. And then they might be able to say stretch or engage in a different physical activity that increases the range further. Or by foam rolling, they can then engage in the activity where if they didn't foam roll, they might not have been able to due to stiffness. Typically, the recommendation, though, with individuals with cancer, though, is to avoid the areas where skin has been damaged by radiation or surgery, at least while it's still healing. Otherwise, you might cause more damage. And don't also roll areas that have swelling from lymphedema. It's not going to help get that swelling down. So if you're interested in foam rolling, I definitely recommend talking to your practitioner or talking to a physical therapist to learn more about how to do it and not hurt yourself further, but it is a great tool for sure. And then I wrote this in my notes as if you're ready for level 2. So beyond those basics of walking, swimming, being outside, stretching, you know, those have been great, but you're kind of are recovering and at a point where you're ready for a little bit more. It can be great to add in some resistance training, especially if you feel like you're getting your balance back. I think balance is more important than resistance right away, unless your balance wasn't affected. But it's great to start with body weight, or as I was doing research, isometric or held movements. So things like going into a squat, maybe right above a chair, but not sitting all the way down, holding it for a couple seconds, and then coming back up with body weight. So that hold at the bottom is activating a few different muscles from just the movement itself. So those are the basics. So things like squats, so like sitting to a chair. I always think of deadlifts like picking up the grocery bag that's in front of your feet. You're hinging at the hips, you're picking it up, using the back of the legs, not the lower back. Things like push-ups, so pushing off a wall, even if it's, you know, a wall push-up, things like that. Rows, so pulling something towards you. Or just, again, another great resistant activity is called a carry. So you are just carrying a weighted object, whether that's your grocery bag, whether it's 2 grocery bags, it's the backpack on your back. Those also activate different muscles from our body that we maybe don't even think about using on a regular basis. But I will say one caveat to all of this is if you do have neuropathy, maybe wait on free weights until you gain some control of the muscles and understand the movements. So usually when I'm working with someone who's a cancer survivor, I have them use like a cable-based weight system first. So something that it has a cable-based pulley track, and then, you know, they just put the pin into the weight bars and move through the system, just because that's going to be a little safer. It's going to allow them to gain the motion of the movement first before they would engage in something like a free weight, especially if, say, they have neuropathy in their feet and can't feel them super well and they're trying to do a squat and balance and carry a weight at the same time. It's a lot to handle at once. So start with something like cable-based weights and build up to free weights if you feel comfortable, or just stay on the cables. They're still going to give you a great exercise. Or if none of that sounds like something you like, maybe you select a fitness class. Maybe something like that looks fun to you. Maybe a dance class, step aerobics, yoga, kickboxing, boot camp. You name it, there's probably something out there for you. And it could be just as, you know, it's still great for your body. It's going to have different impacts on the muscles, the bones, and any exercise is going to give you that feel-good endorphin chemical. So it's going to boost the mood. So those are those things for that. And then some tips for success. Always starting small with small amounts of time and light intensity. So small increments of time. Don't go too hard, too fast. See how your body feels before you add more time or increase the intensity. Typically, if you're sore 2 hours after your exercise or the day after, especially if you're just starting an exercise routine, you're going a little too hard. So you should probably decrease it a little bit. They usually recommend cardiovascular exercise, things like walking, running, swimming, biking 3 to 5 days a week. If you don't usually do that or didn't do that prior to treatment, start with less. Start with just 1 day a week, see how that feels. And then maybe a couple weeks down the line when that's feeling good, add another and slowly build back, or slowly build up or build back to what you had. And then as for resistance training, about 2 to 3 days a week. But again, if you've never done it before, just start with 1. Start with 10 minutes. Find a YouTube video for 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be, oh, I lifted in the gym for 90 minutes for my first time ever, and I'm now so sore I can't do it again. Because that's not a great experience either. And also going too hard can also worsen the fatigue. So then it can make it harder to recover overall. So finding that fine balance, start small, build up. And pretty much that's all I've got for you, Bert.
Argid's fantastic. I am the poster child for why a person should exercise, because I didn't, and I paid for it. I had to do PT for 10 months after my treatment was over because my body atrophied. My body acclimated to the life I was living, and it did not serve me at all.
Yeah.
Now and it took years to get my body back, and, you know, and doing it on my own, and it feels great to have it. So I so appreciate this presentation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I will say, from working with the Livestrong cohorts that we've now, how many cohorts have we had? We just started our 5th today.
Great, it started.
Yep, it started today. So we have 5 cohorts. we've completed 3, we have 4 and 5 are running at different points. But overall, we often get things like, oh, I didn't even realize that I was atrophying like this. We've had some who went through their entire treatment within the scope of our Livestrong. They had just been diagnosed before and had had surgery a month or so prior. They were starting chemo when they started Livestrong, and it kind of was a motivation to keep them moving.
Wow.
We've
Lucky
also
them.
had others who've said they gained weight during chemo, and as a result of Livestrong, they lost the weight. Or they felt good again, or they increased their flexibility, or just now they know what to do when they see a weight room.
Ah,
And things that they feel like they can do are, we don't even always, we're not ever going with heavy weights with our Livestrong participants. Typically, we've had a few who are ready and wanting that, but typically we never start there. We build up to harder exercises, but even simple things like resistance bands, we show them what they can be doing at home. Other activities they can be engaging in. We show them different group fitness classes. And as a result, it kind of opens the eyes to all that can be out there to engage in physical activity. And then the camaraderie that goes with the program itself is always amazing.
beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Y'all are doing it. Thank you.